Did you know that migrants are starting to figure out the American laws and leveraging squatter rights? Check this out, y'all. Y'all not gonna believe it. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications, man. Well, hold on. First, let's do this. Let me make sure I do this. I want to go in order. Before we get into the squatters' rights, a Colorado town voted not to become a sanctuary city.
A Colorado town pushing back on the surge of migrants.
Hold on. Zeus, you're wrong. In the wintertime specifically, Hawaii has 10 times better weather than any other state or city in the United States of America. That's a fact. You got to go visit. You got to understand it. You got to do your research. Hawaii has the best weather. It's a long flight for some of us, but it has the best weather of any American city or state, okay? Then it's Miami in the winter, and then it's San Diego. Look it up. Look it up.
Arriving in Denver, which is about 50 miles away, unanimously voting not to be a sanctuary city. Officials in Monument, Colorado, passing a resolution to not accept any buses from Denver carrying migrants, saying they just can't afford the cost, and they will not use taxpayer funds. It comes after nearly 38,000 migrants arrived in Denver over just the past year. That is more than any other large city per capita.
And you know, the interesting thing about Denver specifically is that Denver has actually voted to evict migrants and then limit the amount of money that they spend because Mike Johnston, who actually went over to D.C. with Brandon Johnson and all of the rest of the mayors, the Atlanta mayor, the L.A. mayor, New York mayor, Chicago mayor, he was like, you know what? We can't really afford this. But they still spending over $180 million to manage the crisis in 2024 alone. And they cut the cord. And they've already allocated $180 million to manage the crisis
in the country. So let's bring in Monuments Mayor Mitch McKind. Mayor, thank you so much for giving us some of your time. First of all, just in your own words, what does it mean for Monument officials to make this declaration?
Hi, Nicole. Thanks for having me. Our decision is not about discrimination or being anti-immigrant. It is about upholding the rule of law and ensuring the...
Fam, listen, look into the camera and stop reading. I know you got your notes prepared. I can see your eyes. Speak to us like a human being. I know he's trying to get his talking points right because white people is so scared to offend people. Oh no, it's not about discrimination. It's not about, hey, listen, we saying this because we can't afford it. That's not what we stand for as Americans. I don't want migrants in my city, and it has nothing to do with that. Listen, this ain't what the people voted for. This ain't what we want. We don't want migrants and illegal immigration into our country and into our city specifically. And so we're going to do our part, and we saying that we not a sanctuary city. We standing on business. Look at him. Look at his eyes. I've never seen this clip before. But look at his eyes. He's looking up and down, and he's trying to figure out what to say because he's got his talking points already. Listen, look at how he reading.
Government officials to make this declaration.
Hi, Nicole. Thanks for having me. Our decision is not about discrimination or being anti-immigrant. It is about upholding the rule of law.
Come on, look at me and talk to me like a human being, big dog.
And ensuring the safety of our residents and making sure that our taxpayer dollars are being spent effectively.
That's how they usually pan away because they don't want you to keep reading. They want you to talk to them. Talk to me, big dog.
And I think it's important to point out this passed unanimously. Were you at all surprised that there was no
room that need help
votes against this? Everybody agreed to this.
Not too surprised. The budget is balanced. There is no money set aside for the kind of issues that Denver is experiencing. It was never brought up during our budget workshops. So sticking to the fiduciary obligation we have towards our residents, it does not surprise me that we were all in agreement on how our money was going to be spent.
You know, and Mayor, so many American cities right now are being impacted by the migrant crisis. As I said at the top of this, Monument is only about 50 miles away from Denver. Do you think this resolution will stop what's happening in Denver from happening in Monument, or is this more about trying to slow what could ultimately be inevitable?
Well, I'm hoping that it will stop it. I'm hoping that Mayor Johnson has heard the message. It's been broadcast multiple times. However, a city just southwest of us by about an hour and a half, Canyon City, has already received 2 vans from a nonprofit of illegal immigrants, and we're hoping.
These nonprofits is full of the devil. I don't care how you allocate yourself. Nonprofits that's over here helping during the migrant crisis is full of the devil. It's the devil's work. Nonprofits that's over here helping during the migrant crisis of messing up these cities are doing the devil's work, including some of these churches. As a matter of fact, I'm going to bring a church to the front of the congregation in the very next segment.
Hoping that the smaller communities like ours in Canyon City are not going to be impacted by what Denver's doing, which is they're kicking out these immigrants after 42-day stays up there, and it's really not sustainable.
Mayor, what would you like to see from the federal government?
Well, the federal government needs to take action. They've had the ability to take action all along, and they've not done that. They've allowed the borders to remain open, and they need to shut them down so that we can all collectively figure out how we're going to deal with the influx of the immigrants that have already crossed in.
This guy got a clue, right? Because he didn't say, well, the government needs to send us money in order to deal with the migrant crisis. He said the government need to cut it off at the head. We don't even need to be sitting here having no conversation about how the government is supposed to help us in the first place. What we need to be doing is making sure that we cut it off so that they don't come into the country in the first place, and that way we can allocate our dollars to things that really matter. Listen, the United States of America never really had enough money to have to deal with some of the stuff that we're dealing with in the first place, that we already have here. We have problems in our own backyard. We ain't got the resources. We already in the deficit, and we sitting here taking in more people to do stuff that's not even in our best interest. We can't even help ourselves. We can't even help ourselves, but we sitting here having conversations about what we doing for other people. But in the meantime, on the flip side,
and this is actually a similar thing we're going to talk about now. It's a nightmare scenario because one handyman turned squatter hunter is warning that migrants may soon catch on to squatters' rights in blue cities. So for those at home who are wondering what squatters' rights mean, dictionary.com says it's, quote, a claim to real property that may be granted to a person who has openly possessed and continuously occupied it without legal authority for a prescribed period of years. Joining us now, United Handyman Association and SquatterHunters.com founder Flash Shelton. Flash, it's great to have you on the program. And this is a really scary prospect that essentially people who are breaking the law have laws that protect them. What kind of world are we living in here?
We're living in Sodom. We're in Sodom. That's where we at. I never even understood why squatters had rights in the first place. That's just that very law is of the devil itself. I never understood the idea behind the fact that people ever advocated on the behalf of somebody that was going into somebody else's property that they did not own in order to take authority over it. And here's the thing. They protect them against you putting them out of your property, and it's your property. So I could pay for it, I could own it, I could pay the property taxes for it, and somebody else can say, nah, listen, I've been illegally occupying your property for a period of time, which then releases your authority to have any kind of domain over it. We live in a country where squatters have rights over your property. It's insane. It doesn't even make sense. This is stupid. And it's so bad, and the genie has been out of the bottle for so long, that migrants are starting to learn the loopholes of the American system to then take advantage of the people that's already here. Yet we have a homelessness crisis on our hands.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, I think it's important to say that regardless of where you sit politically or morally, this is affecting all of us.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, talk to us about how you see change coming? What are policies, the number one policy that you see that could change to help sort of ease the burden of these squatter rights, if you will?
I think that the most important thing is that we just need to criminalize squatting in residential maintained properties. The laws originally were undesignated land by government, and it's been ignored and kind of interpreted in a different way. I think if we criminalize, no squatting in residential maintained properties, that's going to solve a lot of these issues, and send it to criminal court and let law enforcement act.
Why should I say I'm a property owner and squatters come into my property? I've got to take this to court. I've got to get a lawyer. It's a very long fight when you're dealing with a situation like this. It's costly, it's time consuming, it's stressful. Why should the good citizen that is living in the country and doing what they're supposed to do, why should they even have to deal with this at all?
And the truth is they shouldn't. It's just there's no common sense in it at all. You should have more rights. Unfortunately, the homeowner and the landlord is not presumed the residents, and that's what causes this. So because a tenant is always presumed the resident, that's why they have more rights.
And I'm always amazed, right? Because I can own a property, not have it occupied, but again, it's mine, so I can do with it what I want to, because I bought it, I paid for it, right? That's almost like my computer is sitting there on the counter, and you come over to my house and you say, Anton, you ain't used that computer in a long time. This is my computer now because you let me use it the other day, and I've been using it for the next 30 days. What? We might as well implement that when it comes to spouses too. Hey, nigga, she not yours. It was just your turn. It's mine's now. It's mine's now. Because I've been busting her down for the last 30 days, and you ain't touched her, so now all of a sudden she become mine. In no place in the world, no logic supports this. It's my stuff. But because you took possession of it illegally, for a specific period of time, and now you have some kind of rights over it. I mean, we might as well implement this across the board. Why not? If it worked for one thing, it got to work for the other. Otherwise, it shouldn't be working at all. A squatter having rights. You can occupy. Look, man, look. Try that junk if you want to. I'm a different type of dude. I don't play that game. I'm not messing around. I've never had anybody that I had to evict in my life. Play that game if you want to. It's gonna be a very, very, very difficult day in your life, and for the rest of your life, for the amount of time that you continue to play that game with me.